It was the first and only country to leave the EU. In June 2016, a majority of 51.9% of British voters voted for Brexit. And on January 31st in 2020, Great Britain officially left the EU. And what the British were promised was £300 million more for the British Health Service, and that every week. Free trade agreements with the whole world under British conditions. An innovative economy freed from the shackles of the EU. And less illegal migration. And 8 years later, and 4 years after the actual exit, none of these promises have been kept. Instead, the British have to queue for ages at passport control when they go on holiday in Spain, pay customs duties on EU products, and accept that major European politics are made without them now. In my opinion, Brexit was a disaster. That was explained by political professional Alistair Campbell, who advised former Prime Minister Tony Blair for a long time. And he said, even the government's economic advisors report that we have lost 4% of the economy due to Brexit. We are also weaker in the world because a large part of our respect and influence came from our membership in the EU. From a political or geopolitical point of view, Brexit is a problem. That was said by Brexit expert Anand Menon from King's College in London. And he says, if the USA looks towards Europe, who will they talk to? London, Brussels, Paris or Berlin? Well, they talk to Brussels, Paris and Berlin because those are the allies who really have weight. And the British, after 8 years, they have finally had enough of the issue. The British public agrees that they never want to talk about Brexit again, as Menon says. What is interesting is that Brexit is also basically not playing a role in the current election campaign. You know that the election will take place on July 4th. All parties are avoiding the issue. The Conservatives don't talk about Brexit because there is a widespread perception that Brexit has failed, even among voters, said Menon about the governing party. And the opposition Labour Party, which is clearly leading in polls, doesn't dare to open the Brexit can of worms again. And here too, the longing for the British to return to the EU is not particularly strong. I mean, there where I live, in Germany. According to a survey by the opinion research institute INSA, only 37% of people in Germany want Britain to return to the European Union. 19% are against it, and 38% simply don't care. And in Great Britain, as I said, parliamentary elections are taking place in about a month, which is rather surprising. In 2019, the Conservatives, the Tories, won the elections by a landslide. The then Prime Minister Boris Johnson then led the country out of the EU. The joy about this was short-lived, and the governing party stumbled from crash to crash. And we all know what way that went. But can the incumbent Prime Minister Rishi Sunak achieve in just a month what he has not managed to do so far? By calling the election, Sunak had the element of surprise on his side. It was the appearance of a doer who acts and does not just react. But to date, the poll numbers and the mood in the country have not changed much. After almost 15 years, people want change. For the Tories, the path to the opposition benches seems almost inevitable, at least for the moment. But what are the problems of the British? Purchasing power has decreased, and people are suffering from long waiting times in the healthcare system and from infrastructure that just does not work. Many people are even dependent on food aid, and now even the junior doctors have threatened to go on strike again. And this could further worsen the healthcare system. But does all of this have something to do with Brexit? It was the Conservatives who got Brexit through, that's true. But it's too short-sighted to blame everything on Brexit because other countries have their problems too. However, it is true that leaving the EU has essentially created trade barriers with the closest trading partner, which are damaging the British economy. And the great economic promises that came with Brexit have never materialized. But is the Labour Party now so good, or are the Tories so bad because of the polls? The government has left a mess in many areas. However, it's not yet clear how Labour intends to mend this. Change is the slogan that Keir Starmer uses every day. That sounds good, but not much more. The lead is therefore more due to disappointment with the past than any euphoria for Labour. But what solutions does the Labour Party have for the many problems? Well, Labour promises stability, also the reconstruction of the country, the restructuring of the state health services, economic growth, investments in renewable energies. That sounds good and is what most Britons want. But the promises cost money. There should be no tax increases at the same time. Economic growth is the recipe that Labour repeats like a mantra. Whether the economy will develop according to Labour's wishes, however, is quite hypothetical. Most people in Britain regret Brexit. The price of it is becoming increasingly clear. But Europe, as I said, is not even an issue in the election campaign on the island. Officially, all you hear from Labour representatives is what the party is not aiming for with regard to Brussels. And there are 3 red lines. No return to the single market, no freedom of movement, no customs union. Better cooperation is possible beyond this, for example, in defense or in student exchange. Unofficially, however, it is known that a lot of Labour people have long been eagerly building up connections with Brussels, Berlin or Paris. It's not just party leader Keir Starmer who is a friend of Europe. Most Labour MPs are. Starmer himself called for a second Brexit referendum in 2019, but he's no longer doing that. Or would it be accurate to assume he's not doing it yet? The assumption that he is holding back his true goals for the moment seems more plausible than the assumption that he has come to terms with Brexit. But before the question of EU membership can be put to the people again, it will probably take a long time for identity to cool down, even if the economic losses are likely to continue in the meantime. If the problem with Britain's EU policy is boiling emotions, then, in short, emotions must change before policy can change. SNP leader Stephen Flynn won applause during the TV debate, for example, when he described Brexit as an absolute disaster for the economy, and Reform Party leader Nigel Farage as the quack who brought Brexit. There's also a conspiracy of silence on another issue, and that is Brexit, he said, because Brexit has affected the economy more than the COVID pandemic. It has driven up food bills completely unnecessarily in Flynn's eyes. The most heated debate there, however, was sparked by the issue of immigration. Nigel Farage opened the debate by saying that immigration was causing a population crisis and reducing the quality of life for many people in the UK. But the SNP Stephen Flynn described immigration as absolutely essential for public services and the economy, and said the demonization of migrants must stop. The Conservatives' Penny Mordaunt said she thought immigration was too high and that her party would introduce an annual cap on the number of people allowed into the country. And Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner retorted that housing and health problems were not the fault of immigrants, and blamed the Conservatives for decimating public services. So we are still not out of a very interesting time until July 4th. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.